Hey paper crafters, thank you so much for joining me today. I love that you took the time to pop by my channel, check out the video that I've got going, and hopefully stay and poke around a little bit. I'm really excited to be able to offer some videos now and then and share my love of paper crafting. So I hope you find something that you enjoy and come back to see me another time. Bye-bye. Hey paper crafting friends, thanks for tuning in today. Today I'm going to be creating a layout using the January 2023 Kiwi Club Kit. It's called Warms the Heart. It's got some really darling penguins in it. I'll show you the templates that came with it real quick. So this is just like a tracer template and to cut some of these smaller items. But look at this. It's got this cute little penguin. You can give it a little sweater. Oh, you can give it a scarf or a hat or both. There's little earmuffs. I posted a layout with one of the little penguins I made, but this is another one that I did. So super fun. So anyway, this set has got some different things with it. So it's got a heart piece of paper that'll be great for kind of a Valentine's or anniversary or wedding layout. But then it also came with this paper. Now I only have a small piece of it left because I did already cut a border out of it. But I've initially looked at this paper and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with it. So once I started playing, I decided this would be a fun video to share with you guys, just in case you looked at this paper and weren't sure either. So one of the things I did when I first looked at it was try to think about what templates I had that would feature some of the things that are on this paper. The only thing that really fit that came with the new set would have been like the little mitten that I could trace from the tracer. So if you have this set and you're trying to think about it, let me give you some ideas. One of the things I remembered was this little mug template. It's an a la carte called Cozy. It came in a card kit a while back. So that's an idea because there is a little cocoa mug here on the paper. So that's one to bring in, kind of fun. Obviously there's the mittens. So if you have tiny traditions, there's a little bit bigger mitten that you could use. The mittens are held together by a string. So I was thinking maybe this from Good Times. This was like a New Year's kind of kit that came out a couple years ago. And then there's also a lantern on this paper. So if you can see this little lantern here, there's a lantern in an older December kit. It was called Peace. So the lantern and the candle could definitely be used to kind of create an embellishment for this page. So those were the ones that I found kind of right off the bat. Okay, so let me kick those out of view for a minute. And I want to talk you through kind of what I decided. When I first looked at this paper, I thought it really is going to need an up and down border because of the directionality of the paper and stuff. That's just kind of what struck me. So I ended up deciding to go with Paisley Place, and I wanted the little bit bigger piece on this side coming out. So I did this one and this one, and let's see, I think I did them like this. And then I used the smaller Paisley Place, this is 3A and 3B, to create just a little design here on the sides. Okay, so right off the bat, just kind of starting to lay that out. That was one of the first decisions that I had to make with this paper, was just kind of how I wanted those borders to go. And I'll show you in just a second how that turned out, and then I'll move on from there. Trying to pick a background paper to go with this was one of my initial challenges. It's a pretty dark border, so I wanted to make sure that whatever paper that I used with it was not gonna, add more to that darkness. So I really kicked around. I looked at the red, which definitely would work, but I didn't want something quite that, dark. So I ended up going with this lighter blue side. I tried a pink, I tried more of a turquoisey color, but this lighter blue ended up kind of being my favorite. So let me position this real quick, and then I'll show you kind of where I went with these borders, because there were some decisions to be made there too. So if you haven't played with this paper yet, maybe this will get you moving and grooving. Okay, so there's my light blue background, and let me show you some of the different iterations I went through here. So here's that border already cut. Okay. And I tried some different choices, trying to make this decision too, like what I was going to use. So first I grabbed pink, okay? And I had pink here, okay? And then trying to decide what maybe the little strip was going to be. The back side of this is kind of a coral color. So I grabbed the coral and I cut a couple of strips. These are 3/8 of an inch. So that's just one little notch on your trimmer past 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and that looks good. It's totally fine. But for some reason, it wasn't making me happy. So I ended up doing another switch. So here's definitely an idea. And if that catches your eye, super, you may stop right there. Okay. So then I'll show you what I did next. So I went from that one, clearly already cut. So these are going to get used for something down the line. The next one I tried used the coral, which I ended up really liking. I like how it brings out the colors from the paper. Okay. So I got my coral here. And then I tried a pink strip. For some reason, I was just bound and determined I was going to use pink with this. So there's the pink strip. Again, it absolutely looks fine. And that may be your favorite of what I show you. If so, perfect. We all have our own ideas. So I ended up not going with the pink. I pulled that out. And I went with a yellow paper that was included in this pack, because I just liked the contrast and I liked how it started pulling out some of that yellow that was also in that paper. So there's that far. Okay. Honestly, this part took me a while, which is funny. I mean, a border and a strip shouldn't be that big of a deal, but I was just a little bit stuck with it. Okay. So then I started playing with my templates to figure out the rest of my layout. And with this big open space here, one of the things I really like to do is use like a 5x7 photo mat to kind of do some grounding. And then I put a couple of the little 3x4s on top of it. And that gives me an opportunity to crop some pictures and just get the really good focus part. So that is what that's going to end up being. Okay. I can fit a 4x6 this direction up here. So I'm always thinking, especially if I'm doing a layout ahead, I want to make sure that I have some choices with how my photos are going to go. I tend to take photos, both portrait and landscape, so I want both of those options on my layouts. Okay. Up here, I'm going to go with a couple of 4x6s, just a little bit askew and overlapping. It's going to overlap the border a little bit. I think that's fine. And then I'm going to do a 4x4 down here. Okay. So that's kind of the basics of the layout that I decided on. As far as detail pieces, let me grab a couple of those little complementary accessories that I ended up finding. So I decided to go with this little mug. So I grabbed this little cocoa mug. I decided I wanted it here. So I'm going to flip it over because I want that kind of off the side here, and I'll probably elevate it like with some foam tape, but just that cute little mug. And then I've got a pretty good open space right here, so I'm gonna go with a set of these little mittens. So I figure if I cut 2 of these and then I can join them together, maybe with this piece, that'll create a fun little design that just goes from the photo, overlaps onto the border a bit, and I think that'll be fun, kind of fill that space and just make a fun little design. The last thing I wanted to do is I've got an embellishment card that I want to use with this set, and I was trying to decide what I wanted to cut it with. It's not this big, not big enough for these tags, but I'm thinking just a piece of it. So I started kind of playing with this, and this bracket was my first choice because it's really about the right size. And I kind of want to tuck it over here. Okay, so hopefully you can see that well enough. Okay. I am definitely someone who pays attention to shapes and flow. Okay, so we've definitely got like curves in the border. These embellishments are kind of curvy. And then I've got the square edges of all the photo mats. For whatever reason, when I started looking at this, it was bugging me a little bit that it had that point. And I decided I didn't want to go with that. Okay, so I pulled that one out and went with, pulled this tag. And so it's a little more squared at the top, and I thought, well, maybe that's better. I put it in place, still wasn't super happy with that. Something about the squareness wasn't sitting. So then I went for a third choice, and that was this one. So it's got the curves that kind of tie in with the rest of these templates. For me, this one just flowed better. Now, would it have mattered? Would anybody have ever said to me, oh, I don't think you should have used that shape for that tag? Absolutely not. But I do like to share my thinking process with you, and that way if you're, having similar struggles, then maybe it's something that'll kind of help you get through that. Oh, all right, so the next thing I had to figure out was what I wanted to use for my photo mats. Again, this palette challenged me a little bit, a little more than I typically have. I tried lots of things. I went through the paper that came with the kit. The blues were a little bit light because they really matched this or were just a tone darker. Or I could have gone with a very, very deep blue that was about the same color as this background on this border. And then there was a really beautiful turquoise that would have worked, but the flip side of it was the really cute penguins, and I didn't want to use all of them. So one of the things I pulled out was a stash, paper out of a stash from Simply Stories. And I know this looks really busy, but it's going to be mostly covered with a photo, right? So I ended up deciding to go with this print for this big photo mat. And I'm going to use it also for the 4x6s, okay? So it brings in that same color that's in this outer border. It kind of looks like a sweater design. So it's going to go there. Now these photo mats are not all going to match. For me, this was too busy to be all over my page, but I think with this and then picturing it with a photo on top of it, I think it's going to be fine. I did pull in some of the turquoise. See how there's not a ton of contrast, but since it's going to go on top of here, I think that's going to work. So that'll be my little 3x4 mats. And then I did bring in some of that dark blue, but again, it's not everywhere, and I think it's going to work out okay. So that'll be my 4x6 here, and it'll be my 4x4 here. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. It did, like I said, it took me a little bit to get there, but I'm okay. So then thinking about my embellishments, one of them was already really decided, and that was the tag. I knew that I wanted to use this one that says "We go together like hot chocolate and marshmallows." So this one was already predetermined. This one actually helped me make a decision about what color photo mat I was going to use here so that I could kind of keep the eye moving and tie those colors in across the page. So here's this guy. And I just took a little piece of ribbon, to extend that tag just a bit. And I might need to shift these just a little bit so that this guy's not popping off the page. Okay, so coming together, I had to decide what I wanted these other embellishments to be to keep that color palette as unified as possible. So I ended up deciding to go with kind of a red and coral version for this mug. So you have to look at this mug, you guys. So I ended up tracing it, the whole thing on the red striped paper. And I gave it just a pink handle, the little pink heart. And then there's not an easy way to make this little cocoa shape, but what I ended up doing was just tracing the top side of this little mug, okay? And I only went, there is an outline. Let me see if you can see it. There's a little outline on there. So I just went as far on my trace as that little outline that's in the center of the mug there. And that gave me the good kind of width of it. And then I just kind of freehanded it to make a stretched out oval, okay? I cut 3 little marshmallows, just freehanded those. So I'm super happy with how that turned out. I think it's cute. It'll be fun, popped up, okay? And then the last embellishment that I had was these little mittens. And if you look at the mittens on the paper, let me grab that. The mittens on the paper are the yellow, and then they've got a little white snowflake on them, and they've got some little details on the part that would go around the wrist, some little white lines. So I wanted to mimic that feel. So this is what I ended up going with, were these little guys. I made them out of the yellow. I had a couple of little punched out snowflakes that were actually just in my little embellishment container that were already done, so those were perfect. And then I did this little texture on the bottom with some texture paste. And if you haven't ever played with that, I will show you how to do that in just a second. But these little guys I thought would be just so fun kind of along here somehow. So I may overlap the top of this a bit, and then I wanted to join them with something. So I have a couple of ideas. I have that yellow piece that I cut from that old January kit. So I did cut that in case that's what I decide to go with. You know, maybe something like that. Kind of looks like the string. I could join them together. And then I also took a piece of this twine. So I had kind of this light blue twine, and I got it a little bit wet and I wrapped it around a pin. It's just been sitting here. I'm going to see kind of what it did. I wanted to see if it would maintain some of that curve. So I could use something like that. I mean, I know it's going to get smushed down on the page, but I wasn't sure if it's going to get lost in the page. You know, I don't know. I haven't really made a decision on that yet, but that's where, you know, that's just a thought and an idea for how to use something to join those mittens together. So I want to show you guys how to do this detail with the texture paste. So give me 2 seconds. I'm going to clear this and I'll pop back on and show you. All right, so you've got lots of choices here, but I'm going to just show you kind of what I did using the template that came with the Kiwi kit. So you'll recognize these little lines here. That's what I used on the bottom of that mitten. They would go great, and I think they were probably designed to be lines to put on the little sweater for the penguin, or you could be using this zigzag design or both on the sweater for the penguin, okay? So that's what that template was really intended for outlining or inking or using something like what I'm going to show you. So I'm just going to grab a scrap piece of paper. I grab this little red one here. And if all I want to do, say, are those little lines, the easiest way for me is to block off the parts of the stencil that I'm not going to use. So I don't want that little mug. And I'm just using this Post-it tape, okay? It just works well for stuff like this. It's actually something I had in my classroom, and I ended up deciding that it was a good craft supply. Whoop. So I don't want any little holes, extra holes showing that are right by where I'm going to be working, or that's going to make it hard to control the paste, okay? So let me just put this over here. The tape's kind of nice because it also helps hold your stencil in place. And I'm going to use all of the lines, so I'm going all the way, okay? The texture paste that I happen to be using is from Ranger, and this is just an opaque matte paste, so it's just white, okay? So I'm going to open that up. And then I'm going to use one of these palette knives. These are also from Ranger. I'll put a link in the description of the video in case you're looking for a product like this. Okay. There's lots of different choices for these palette knives. I don't know that one's better than another. I haven't done enough of it to have a strong opinion, okay? But you get a little bit of the paste and you just spread it on kind of like you're icing a cake, okay? You just spread it and kind of smooth it out, and you'll feel it gets into those little spots. You can wipe the excess back into your container. I'm going to give it another swipe. Just make sure each one is pretty full. Okay, that's done. I just rinse this off in the sink. It's not a big deal. Quick rinse. I rinse the stencil, okay? And you can just pull this up right away, but then you're going to want to set your piece aside to dry. Okay, so when I pull that up, I've got those lines. It's really hard to show you that there is some height to that, okay? Because it's filling the stencil, it just makes a really neat texture. And then when this dries, it stays perfectly in place and just has that fun detail for you. If you haven't played with a product like this, I would highly recommend giving it a try. Just a fun way to use some of these stencils and things that are starting to come with our kits. So hopefully that gives you a new idea. I will post some pictures at the end to show you how the layout all came together once it was all taped down and had some foam tape behind it. But hopefully this gave you some inspiration to get that kit out, get playing, and having some fun. So thanks for taking the time to join me today. Please take a second, if you haven't done it already, subscribe to my channel, maybe share my video with somebody else, or give me a thumbs up or a comment. So I always appreciate hearing from you. I'll see you guys soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.